Ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and call this draft workshop number 3 for the comprehensive master plan to order with the Planning Commission and the Town Council. This time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we are here tonight for our third comprehensive master plan workshop between the Town Council and the Planning Commission. During tonight's meeting, we will be going rather quickly, reviewing only the edits that have been submitted since the second workshop. So we will be going chapter by chapter, page by page. We are not going to go page 1, 2, and 3. I know I have a key of every page that has an edit on it, so we're going to skip to each one of those. Just to be very clear and upfront, the second that I feel like we have a consensus with the council, I will be asking for that. And if there is one, we are moving on at that moment. We will not continue to discuss the matter at all. I'll open up the floor real quick to either Larry or Ralph. You guys have any high-level overview, or do we just want to dive in?
Yeah, just much appreciation. I know you guys have worked between the last workshop and this workshop to try to fine-tune some things to make tonight go smoother, and hopefully we will be done after this evening is complete. Thanks.
Yeah, and likewise, I just wanted to make mention that what we have before us, and the council members may know this, but tonight's version reflects all of the work that we did together in workshops 1 and 2, and also incorporates the suggested edits that were provided by 2 council members in a meeting that we had on November 25th. And that meeting actually had several pages of proposed changes. And as we tried to reflect in the margin notes of your current version, we also strive to try to get mutual agreement between those council members at that meeting. And by the way, that separate meeting was endorsed by the council president and the mayor to go ahead and move ahead. So we felt there was a degree of efficiency in going ahead and having that meeting to get their ideas incorporated into the version you have before you. Just 2 real last quick points. I know we've scheduled a public hearing on January 13th, if I'm not mistaken. And so I would respectfully suggest that whatever we close on tonight, that the next step be that you expect the Planning Commission to provide a final version by December 30th. December 30th being key, that it provides the town and the public a 2-week read ahead of that January 13th meeting. So that would be a reasonable, and we would strive, of course, to meet that. So from tomorrow until December 29th, we would be working to make now a final version that you would be willing to hang on the website for the public to look at, bring to the meeting on the 13th. That December 30th suspense also allows us to provide that final copy to the council if they wish to have that copy available for their January council meeting. So there's a double benefit with trying to meet that timeline. And then the very last point I would offer, Council President, is that if from tonight's deliberations there are still concerns that there are more edits needed, or there's more refinements that need to discuss, what I want to do is allay any concerns that this has to be absolutely perfect. And I say that in the context of having discussed with the state regional representative that we work with from Maryland Department of Planning, the ability to keep a master plan agile and update it and improve it during the 10-year cycle is always there in coordination with our regional planner. We simply have to tell them what we feel is substantive in that change or in those amendments. We meet with the regional planner. Ours is Mr. Brooks Phelps. He's very amenable to having these discussions. And so I just end with that point that you not only should see this as an actionable plan for the town to implement for the next 10 years, but you should also regard it as a very agile plan in case, as we move through it, we see things better, we see things smarter, we see changes needed. And so it can be done once it's adopted to make it better. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And it will be our ultimate goal to complete tonight, for sure. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and dive right in. If we could go to chapter 1, page 7. What you'll see on the right are suggested edits. And we will just start at the top and work our way down. So I would ask, does anyone have any questions, concerns on the edit as we see?
I don't have a question on the edit, but below all the red line where it says perhaps among the greatest challenges, I think I asked that last time. Do we want perhaps there or just among the greatest challenges? It's not really a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, line 189. I mean, it's not perhaps, it's a reality, right? Would anybody have an issue if we cross out perhaps? I mean, it's basically among our greatest challenges, which is kind of strong in itself.
I'm fine with that. Do we have one more person? All right, good. We'll go ahead and cross out perhaps. Do we have a council consensus on the first edit on page 7?
I'm good.
All right, I'm fine. So we have a consensus there. How about the second edit? Looks just like adding the word a sense of community. I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Okay, we can move on. Next page will be page 8 in chapter 1. It looks like I know Councilmember Demoter and Munder both agree, so if we have one more person that agrees, we can move on.
I'm good.
All right, let's move on. Page number 9. And Ralph, or anyone in the planning commission, please feel free to jump in at any time. Just because we agree, if you do not, I definitely want to know your stance on how you feel. Okay. Page 9, we have at the top.
I think it's fine.
All right, I'm good with it too. All right, we'll move to page 12. So this is Councilmember Demoter only.
Yeah, this is not really, it was a desire. The point is, whenever we say something in this plan, we made a commitment to do X, we made a commitment to do Y, we need to do X, we need to do Y. It seems like there should be some actionable objective in the plan that addresses that. And there is not one for this. But I'm not gonna, this isn't a showstopper comment for me.
Well, and I just have one comment on that, Councilmember Demotis. So the actions and concepts implemented by the town since the last master plan have shown the commitment to follow through. So I kind of feel like that's a moot point.
Yeah, I guess I
Good
see.
point, but
yeah.
it's not a showstopper for me. I'm good with it the way it is.
I do see it differently. I mean, if you're gonna, that's great that we did all those things, but if we're saying we're gonna continue to make a commitment to improve the economy, et cetera, then the obvious question is, well, what are you gonna do? But I'm fine with moving on.
All right, Council Secretary is good. Do we have a consensus to leave it as is? Okay, we'll leave it as is. Thank you. All right, move to page 15. Oop, I'm sorry, page 14. So it looks like we just had a text added to align with a goal, new goal and text in the intro. I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
All right, move on to 15 now. Per discussion 1125.
If town staff is good with it, because it looks like staff was agreeing with putting in and/or town staff to assist, I'm good with it. Town staff is good with it.
John? Okay,
So
consensus is good.
I did make a suggestion as to what could go in at one of the previous workshops, and if you want a suggestion, I have suggested text. So I can just provide that to the town, and if they want to use that or not, or I could read it off here. It's up to you.
What, go ahead quickly, that's fine.
So you could put a note that says something like, Chapter 5, municipal growth addresses community development initiatives, and then I'm going to throw out a suggested actionable item if you want, and it picks up on what was in the 2013 plan, and I think it picks up some things that people wanted in this plan, and that might be, it would say strategic goal D, commercial development. It would say Mount Airy's Economic Development Commission will identify approaches to further encourage economic development within the town by promoting, among other things, historical tourism to enhance the economic development of Main Street businesses. So that's an example of an actionable objective if you wanted to include it. So it picks up the theme of historical tourism.
Well, I'm curious because the EDC, don't we have their vision statement on the town's website of what their vision is and what their goal is? If it's there, do we need it here in here specifically?
Well, I think the point is, are there specific objectives you want to accomplish as part of this master plan? And I know in the last master plan, and I think the mayor may appreciate this, it said that the town was going to encourage tourism focusing on the rails to trails and the historic tradition of the town, something like that. So it's a way to kind of formalize that same continuing desire.
Council President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so in the context, in the greater context, each of these areas that you see on this page, and they actually begin on the previous page, is where the state feedback to us was we must address how we are fulfilling the state's 12 planning visions. And so the numbered items there are those exact 12 state-directed planning visions. And so the commission decided that under each one, we would just put at least one example to be seen in greater depth later in the master plan as to where we indeed are doing one of, that vision, whatever that vision is. And so on number 8, economic improvement, again, all we're trying to put in there is just a solid example of where we are in fact keen about economic development. Yeah,
Oh, and right now, we're just looking for that.
for that example, yeah.
So if you want to,
And you're the liaison with the EDC, correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's probably pretty fair to, I'm good with what he wrote.
Yeah, if you connect it to historic tourism, I think that's a good change.
Okay,
So if you want to add that
want to shoot it to me?
wording.
Yeah, I'll give you the wording.
Do we have a council
Fantastic.
consensus on that?
Okay.
I mean, the way he read it,
Will you read it again?
Yeah, it should be
I think it
okay.
fits.
Kinda-
He is the liaison.
kinda
to the
scribbled.
EDC.
I'm going to read it real quick again for us.
I'm going to try, okay?
But yeah, sorry.
Mount Airy's Economic Development Commission will identify approaches to further encourage economic development within the town by promoting, among other things, historical tourism, additional small businesses, and future rails to trails paths to enhance the economic development of Main Street businesses. Because I got in there the small businesses because that was one of our strategic objectives. And I got in there the rails to, it's future rails to trails paths, and that's the exact phrase that we used in the 2013 plan. So I'll send you the exact wording.
Okay.
You need to clean it up, but you've all heard what
Yeah,
we're trying to do.
I think something just a little bit cleaned up from that is perfectly fine. And
Okay.
and like I said, being that you're the liaison for the EDC, I think it makes
Because
sense.
I know you
to use
guys
that.
were really looking for something from me on that, so I tried to provide that.
All right, do we have a consensus? I'm good with it. Okay,
I'm good.
thank you for that, Steve.
Yep.
All right, we will now move on to page 21. My thumbs aren't working.
And I just want to say for a little levity here, so the two council members who met with town staff and the planning commission were Councilmember Munder and Councilmember Demoter. And I hope you're appreciating as we go through this, that most of these, we both agreed on the changes. So we did work together on these things.
Yes, we're just adding foreseeable. I'm good with that.
My only question was, I brought it up at the last one, why do we have outstripped? I had said, is it exceeded or surpassed? Because that was in my notes from our last meeting. So right on that same line, 699. recognizes the development in Mount Airy has outstripped the town's ability. Was that the right word in there, John? Outstripped?
I think that's appropriate. I mean, really, what it's saying is we're behind on our adequacy of public facilities.
So the growth has exceeded our ability to keep up with it.
We have an 80-acre deficit of open space.
Yeah, so the development has surpassed our ability to meet it.
Yes. It's presenting a challenging situation. That's
Right, I agree with that.
Trying to
I was just
defend-
questioning the word, that's all. It's no big deal.
Did we all agree on that one, or we still?
Telling him, we were talking about it because it was his word, that's why he was defending it. But when you look up the definition of outstripped, like our kids running in sports, I outstripped you of your title because I ran faster than you. Like, I really looked up that word because I had questioned it last time, and it really, we've exceeded our ability. Why can't we just simplify it and say we have exceeded our ability? Right?
Or surpassed.
Or surpassed.
I
What do you
can
think, Ralph?
agree to- I'll agree to that one, because it does sound, outstrip, I get it, but it's a complicated term to me, but exceeded or whatever you said too.
I'll go ahead and make a thing.
Surpassed.
I see Chairman Gantz trying to talk.
Sorry.
I would just offer the wording a little bit softer, perhaps, that would say, recognizes that development in Mount Airy is challenging the town's ability
There you go.
the word I used, good.
to support growth.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Do we have a consensus on challenging?
Yep, is challenging.
Challenging.
We'll move on. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, so we're gonna go into chapter 2, page 29.
Can we first,
Oh,
this
yes, sir.
first map here, or no, I'm on the wrong one, I'm sorry.
Where are we, John?
Community framework.
Yeah, community framework.
Okay.
As you can see, these are highlighted. I did put copies of the new revised maps on your desk in front of you. So this currently is the revised map that's, would be up to date. There are some finite changes I'm gonna have Carroll County do, which is some just realignment of some of the different line types. So it won't change much more than what we have here.
Okay. I'm good with it. Council?
Yeah.
All right, we have 3. John? I'll move on to chapter 2, page 29. All right, just a quick, looks like a red line add. Looks like we have an edit or a agreement between 2 council members. I'm fine with the wording as it states.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Move on to page 34.
That's good.
Okay.
Downtown zone infill and redevelopment.
All right, so we have a consensus with you 3. We'll move on to chapter 3, page 42.
Page
42?
42.
Sir.
Sorry, I'm kind of hard of hearing tonight.
you're fine.
so
I got
don't-
it.
So apologize. if
I'll
I
speak louder.
You're not using your coaching voice tonight. 42, okay.
I'm good with striking that wording,
I agree.
so we can move on.
Yeah.
Page 48, please. Looks like we added PFAS contamination, agricultural fertilizers. I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's good.
On to page 51. So we have exact new text was not specified, but hopefully the proposed edit suffices. So,
Yes, Council President, this was a good discussion about how to word that we basically fall under the county's MPDS permit.
okay,
Barney, you remember? Yep.
all right, I'm good with that.
Basically to say we do have a permit and we work through Carroll County.
Move on to page 53. I do like that the well numbers are added.
Yeah.
And then the second edit with the Sterling Glen subdivision, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That was just to acknowledge that we're now talking about the wastewater section, not,
Yeah.
not water.
Yeah, I like that wastewater treatment better. That's
Yep, that's
good.
fine.
Yeah. More
Page
of a
50,
correction.
57.
57.
A lot of red lines on this one. Looks like it's just duplications
Yeah.
on the top one, so that's fine with me. Bottom. Yeah,
And again, the red ink on the goal descriptions is from our previous workshops where
Correct.
we adjusted those goals, and so that's all those are.
yep,
So,
yeah, so that's still fine. And next page, 58. Looks like Barney just asked for additional words. It's fine with me. Do we have a?
It's good.
Okay. Chapter 4, page 60. Just a little bit of wordsmithing.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
fine
those
with
Yeah.
it.
that's better words.
Yep, I'm fine with it. All right, we'll move to page 62, please.
Okay, so let me explain the comment boxes here. So there's a little funkiness with the wording in 1836 to 1838. And then if you go to the next page, there's a current vacant land inventory pie chart. And we talked about getting this fixed, and I guess it wasn't fixed. These numbers in the pie chart do not add up to 100. You got 108%. So,
They have been fixed, they just haven't been updated in this version.
okay, so that has been fixed.
Yep, it has been
I want to
fixed.
be able to show we can get to 100%.
Yep, that'll be updated.
All right, so then we'll get with that as long as we correct that. Page 63, that looks like the same thing, just needs to indicate with that.
Yeah.
Town administrator, just on a little bit of wordsmithing. Vacation, yep, I'm good with that too. All right, so page 66.
I like the addition of the footnote and the link to directly to the dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the idea, is to give some context to,
Okay, so we have a consensus on that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
One for 1125. All right, so page number 67.
so Council President, now we're getting into a couple of pages here where we're seeing some new red line text that we haven't seen yet until this current version, so I'm going to have some comments on this.
The only thing I want, yeah, that's fine. The only thing I want to make sure of, if we're pulling stuff directly from the state, so I'll lean on Ralph for that. Besides wording that will drastically impact the future of Mount Airy, I don't want to dictate that, but if certain things are just copied from state documentation, that's not really up for a edit. So we can go line, we can look at the new text line by line, but if it is a state pulled and has to be in it, but it does not pace forward the way that the future of the town's gonna build, then we'll move on. But let's go ahead and start at the top real quick from the 11:25 meeting. This looks like it's from Councilmember Munder.
Yeah, I just wanted it in there, Council President, more so to just say what, to set, not a limit, just to show what a person would have to make to live here at 30%, to do the, I want to say, the mortgage or the rent and things of that nature. It's just nothing to say. It doesn't really impact the future amount of area in my view, in any negative way. It just shows that, due to our high level of AMI, the upper limit of 30% would be which is a national standard for housing burden, would be about approximately $3,500 a month. It just sets a number, in my view. And with the publication of the briefing for the Carroll County Commissioners tomorrow from the Carroll Housing Plan, it kind of falls within, it really shows some numbers. It's kind of eye-opening, is the best way to describe it.
Any thoughts, consensus?
Yeah, I mean, it does go along with it also shows the state that we have looked at it more so than not. Doesn't set anything, just say we're aware of it, we know what it is, and go from there.
Thoughts on the addition? Anybody?
What's your opinion on that as far as that sentence?
Yeah, so essentially, all the changes you see on this page are really intended to be educational. They're not to be, or they don't intend to be prescriptive for how the town should develop in any residential category, affordable, et cetera, et cetera. It's just simply to kind of make the statement that the state talks about what they define as affordable housing, no more than 30% of AMI. And so what we tried to do there, and what I gleaned from the November 25th meeting was, from Councilmember Munder's urging, let's be as explicit as we can as to what that means for our town when we apply those state thresholds for 30% AMI. And so really what I tried to do there was not only add that more specific set of numbers, but also add as the footnote the explanation as to why we're giving that kind of more exact data. So that was the intent of this. And again, if any of this is interpreted as being prescriptive, that we are going to, go in a certain direction that is within affordable housing or any of that, that wasn't the intent. And I hopefully didn't do that.
Yeah, it appears more educational, especially with the footnotes, which I think a lot of people wouldn't normally know that. So I think that would help the public.
Sure. Yep.
So I have a question on this. So all the text in the footnote, is that directly out of a state document, or that's your wording that's your explanation?
Oh, no, that's not personal. This is State Department of Planning information.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
So,
These are definitions applied by the state.
all right. So as we get into this, just so everyone knows, I gave everybody a comment set, and my handwritten markup of this is in my comment set. If you look at, I have a page 67. If you thumb through my comments, they're the actual pages here with some handwritten comments, okay? So regarding this particular, I mean, if you're all comfortable with this footnote, I mean, you've got a footnote that's almost a half page long. Typically footnotes,
I understand.
So my initial thought was, you don't really need all of that text, but if people want it, then fine. I was going to suggest you can just, as you can see in my markup, you can take out as background, take that whole section out, and then just leave the very last sentence that says, to learn more about the Maryland housing income limits, visit the department's research, the research page. But if you all want all that text in there, then there it is.
I think for something like this, on an educational, the more information we can provide, where it's coming from,
Okay,
better.
I agree, because having gone with the mayor to testify on a bill, the fact that we're putting out there that it's HB 1045 really would help someone in the public trying to look it up, because it's not fun trying to search a bill.
Not at all.
No, no, it's not.
Right, Larry, Mayor? I mean, I think it's a good thing to have there. I think you did a fantastic job on that
Yeah.
footnote. Thank you.
All right, so we'll have a consensus on that. That can stay.
Right, thank you.
so the next comment, and I bring this up because I made this at our last workshop. I made it during our working session that we had, and it still wasn't incorporated, and it sounded like you were going to incorporate something. And my comment is, you look at line 1959, says the town has a mix of these different housing types, and then you say throughout the town. First of all, those aren't really throughout the town equally, okay? And then you say we have a very small number of apartments and condo-type housing structures. You don't provide the actual data. And in the 2013 plan, at least you had on page 61, you had a graphic that says Mount Airy housing mix, and you broke it down by low density, high density, medium density. It seems to me if you're going to do any meaningful analysis of this fair housing analysis section, how can you even do that without understanding what our current housing mix is and what the proportions are? So I was advocating for including a baseline graphic that showed that information. And I still advocate for that.
Right.
You're not giving any numbers. So how do you even get to your analysis without really knowing what your baseline is? Got it? That's my point.
Yeah, and Council President, if I can. Yeah, so Councilman Demoter, I tried to recognize exactly that in the wording in the margin, that you did ask for more fidelity. I use the word fidelity,
Yeah.
but you wanted more specifics with regard to the breakdown of those different types of housing. I do recognize at that meeting that you were looking for something like a chart or whatever. I don't think, and again, it could be just me, but I don't think we actually settled on the resolution of that topic,
Yeah, 'cause-
John.
Understand.
But
So the question is.
I know you're advocating for
I'm
something
advocating
that's
for it, yeah.
specific as to every type of dwelling within the town boundaries and the breakdown and the numbers and that sort of thing.
Or at least these broad categories. And my point is, if you did it for 2013, why aren't we at least including that in our 2023 document?
And we can, if that's what the council wants to see as part of this plan, then we can easily pull that together. We're struggling trying to find the old data to update it, so we'd have to make a whole new data chart, which is not a big deal, but, if that's what the council wants.
I wouldn't mind actually seeing kind of what it was in 2013, just very basic, medium, low, high density.
Probably, I mean,
2013 master.
Yeah, it sounded like from Heather, it wouldn't, and Barney, it wouldn't change that much because not that much was added. And I think you had a kind of back of the envelope way to get at that data. It didn't sound like it would be difficult.
It's, we really think that it's Brittany Manor is the only subdivision.
That's what I was
that's going
thinking.
to make any changes, and it's doubtful if even it's gonna amount to a percentage point. In the low-density residential category, what we are trying to find is the data set that I used 12 years ago, and we haven't been able to find that to easily just plug in that number. So that's why it's not ready now, because if I cannot successfully find that, then we have to start from scratch.
Or you
So-
can just, if nothing else, use that graphic and say,
That felt like cheating, so we did.
data.
yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like, if worse comes to worse, you can use a 2013 and say from 2013, this was this, and it probably hasn't changed that much due to low development.
And we would probably come up with the same result, but we wanted to be genuine and
good. I would want you to do that too.
So what I'm hearing you say is if you're going to do it for here, it might look exactly similar to this. Maybe that will say 23% and that'll say 28%. Might be up or somewhere back and forth percent here and there.
It's not.
If you look in 2013, it's right in there.
So John and I are still looking for my data set, but
Well, do we have a consensus that we want to try
I
to
would,
find a chart that they can go in there before
yeah,
the
I would,
12:30 shutdown date?
yeah, I would say try and see what we can get, because I think it would help once this goes to the state too, and as things progress this session with other things related to housing, maybe it might help to show that we are where we need to be.
I'm thinking baseline, if you can't find that.
Yeah.
Start with baseline right there.
All right, so we have a consensus on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, try.
Okay, and then a quick comment. I'm just asking if you're willing to make this minor change. Line 1960, the wording throughout the town. Can we just put a period after townhomes? Because throughout the town, again, look up the definition of throughout, it makes it sound like we've got duplexes and clusters of townhomes scattered mosaically across the town of Mount Airy, and that to me is not accurate. So you can just say that we have a mix of these types and then just say period after townhomes, period.
I'm not sure that's true. I mean, we got townhomes all over this place. We got them on Hill Street. We got them over off of,
Village of Tall Oaks by Food Line, all the way
Tall
to
Oaks.
the Brittany Manor side over
way
by
out
Twin
by
Arch.
Across
Twin
by
Arch
Street.
Crossing.
you, Lynn, across the street from you, back behind the old Mount Airy Auto Parts, we have a lot of small little clusters throughout
Calvary
town.
next to Calvary.
Yeah, it's leftovers from old planning decisions.
So,
Having said that, I'm not against you.
Okay.
I'm not against us ending the sentence
okay,
at townhomes.
well, that's excellent. Can we do that?
I'll find a consensus on the fact that I think it's accurate. I go from left to right, from the left side of the town to the right side of the town, and you'll see
Everywhere,
Village of Tall Oaks all the way to the Brittany Manor, Twin Arch,
yeah.
complex down there, and everything in the middle, right across from Mount Airy Middle, et cetera. There are townhomes throughout the community. So it's,
Maybe-
it's up, I don't want to deep dive into this, so if we have a consensus one way or the other, let me know. So Councilmember Demoter had the first thought, if we have a consensus to remove throughout the town and just leave a period, council?
No, I would leave it as is, maybe.
Just yes, if we don't
Yeah.
hear anything, then we'll move on.
Say again, what
We
would,
have a consensus to remove throughout the town.
okay,
Okay, do we have a consensus to leave it as is?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, we'll leave it as is, thank you. But we still need to go back to, 67, line 1955, starting at therefore, in order to limit any residents' monthly housing costs. We never came to a consensus on that. Do we want to leave it in? Do we want to?
Well, after hearing Chairman Gant that it's really educational in nature, I kind of like having that in there for the public clarification.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 3, obviously, okay. It looks like we hit everything on, no, I'm sorry, there's still one at the bottom, 1967.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge for those trying to limit their monthly housing costs.
Yeah, it's more educational and makes a statement that, I mean, it's an educational thing, because basically, the more money you spend on housing costs and related other costs, the less you have to spend in town. So we all know how hard it is nowadays to afford housing and stuff, but it's just more educational than anything else. It doesn't make anything that we're working towards or anything else, is the way I'm looking at it.
After reading this, my comment would be, I kind of like the just the facts, ma'am approach, and I would just put a period after the 459,500. You're making a personal judgmental opinion about whether something's challenging or not for somebody. So I'm a no on the wording.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, we're saying it is a challenge. I mean, we know it is, but maybe some people it's not.
Okay.
John, sure. All right, so we'll go ahead and have a consensus to
Stop at
leave it as is.
459.5.
Yep. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to page number 68.
1973.
Sorry, did I miss one?
Yeah, it's more wordsmith and then
Yeah, I'm sorry.
correction.
But I think that was on the previous meeting that we already came to a consensus on, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we don't need to worry about that one. That's already done. All right, page 68. Looks like we're just striking some wording.
I do have a, if you look at my comments, that it's true, it wasn't on new text, but if you look at line 1980 and 1981,
Hold on what page, on,
page 68.
Hang on one second, we're gonna stick with just where we're at. I started this here, we're striking the wording that we're all looking at on page 68.
Okay.
From 1983 to 1985. And then we can go back and look at,
yes, we can,
Okay.
it looks like we already have two that agree on the
yeah,
edit.
I think that's a good thing to get rid of.
Okay, so we have a consensus there. Councilmember Demoter? what were
So
you saying?
line 1980 and 1981, the town benefits from higher wages earned, higher property values, and lower crime. But there is a limited affordable housing inventory. So my question is, this is the analysis section, right? So how do you know that? You're saying there's a limited affordable housing inventory. Based on what? How did you arrive at that statement? Did you just, is it a guesstimate? Is it a personal feeling? Did you look at national census data and say to yourselves, let me find all the people in the town who make less than X amount of money and therefore would not meet the affordability criteria? And what percentage of people is that? Is that 2%, 1%? So you're making this statement. I see no analysis other than perhaps an opinion that there's a limited affordable housing inventory. What did you base that on?
So, Council President, that statement is a line drawn from the previous pages where we state that the average of the AMIs for this area is 138,450. And then just below that on page 67, we state that from the 23 census that the median housing unit cost is 459,500.
Yeah.
And so when you take a look at what the average AMI is at that amount, 138, and then you look at the average cost of single dwelling, then you draw the line, you extrapolate from the income and then the average cost of single-family housing to not having a large inventory of affordable housing, affordable being defined by the cost of the dwelling and also by the amount of average income. So,
And how much would that be? Like,
so affordable housing is housing where there is no more than 30% of the person's AMI is spent annually on that residence, whether it's rental or owned property. So no more than 30% is the definition, and that is also captured in those footnotes, education,
okay, all right.
sort of thing. So,
The facts on 67 lead to the fact that we don't have.
yes, sir.
So it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice to have a tie to that, but okay. Thank you for the explanation.
And we're good with what we struck there on the rest of it. So we'll move on to page 69. Starting at the top, we have some words stricken. Excuse me. Looks like we already have two council members. Do I have one other agree? I will go ahead and be good with that. I saw the town administrator agrees as well. And then we just moved to should encourage to may provide, which I am good with as well. Do we have a consensus on that?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So are we still on page 69?
Yep.
okay.
Okay. Are we ready to move down to the new text?
So I was just looking at we removed should encourage to may provide, and then now we're looking at the new, the citation of the source.
Oh, okay, got you on 2029 and 2030. Okay, got you.
Yeah, 2029 and 2030, we have a consensus on to just change.
Okay.
Instead of should encourage more middle housing, it's
May
may
provide.
provide more middle housing.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And then we are looking at 2031 to 2039 as additional added text.
Okay,
Yeah, which is educational again, or intended to be. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my question on this is the last sentence on line 2036. You say the affordability element comes to fruition using existing infrastructure, streets, sidewalks, utilities. Was this in a state document, that wording?
That's correct.
Okay.
All of that is derived from the reference given in the bow legs, a little higher in that paragraph.
Okay.
And so that's just a literal pull, again, trying to make clarity as to what this term missing middle housing is all about. So,
Okay.
because if I could just add, because right now there's from the state, there's a lot of phrases that have connections and they have separate, unique aspects. So when you talk about affordable housing, you don't necessarily address and encompass missing middle housing, but there are elements where they do overlap. So, and so you have these kind of phrases, and so that's why I was inclined to kind of bring clarity to all of those state kind of pet rocks, so to speak, when it comes to describing the housing they desire to see across the state. So,
Okay, as long as, again, this is analysis, it's not dictating the future of
it's not prescribing.
the community. Yeah.
No. The only prescription in there is that, which I agree with, is a softening of the words that, we may provide.
Instead of should encourage. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right,
I have a comment on text that's currently here, so if you'll indulge me, fine, if
we
not.
need to get a consensus on this real quick.
Okay.
Are we good leaving this in?
Leaving it as is. Yeah, I'm good.
Quickly, what was?
All right, so look at line 2015 to 2018. Okay, I want you to read that section. We're saying we can use annexation agreements to require builders to develop a specific number of different types of housing units, townhouses, duplexes, multifamily units. This approach will likely encounter more resistance from developers who may otherwise partner with the town unless the profit margins are exceptionally high. Why are we saying this, and why are we looking out for the developer's interest? If you're going to keep this in here, then we should say also something like, such approach will likely encounter more resistance from citizens wishing to limit high-density development in their communities. I don't understand why we are promoting this. It's like we're saying we want to annex and we want to have high-density housing, but we want to be careful because, the developers, they may not partner with us because they're not getting enough profit margin. I just don't like the message that's sending.
Thoughts?
Yeah, so the thrust of that, so I understand your perception of it, and again, the benign thrust of that was to try to say there is a way, there is a tool that if the town desires specific categories of housing that meet affordability or meet harmony with adjacent communities, there can be within the growth by way of annexation agreements, that the residential components of those development plans can be certain types of homes. Just as we would say, for instance, we need more kind of Wildwood type housing, just as an example. We would say we would highly desire that, that be the kind of thing that you build out if we were to annex that parcel. So that's all that it was meant to be, is just bringing to light the fact that the town can have some direction with whatever developer plan is provided on an annexed parcel. If it looks too heavy-handed, and if it looks like, we just need to understand there's a market-driven development plan, the developer is going to bring to us what the developer wants to see as far as residential housing, then, which we all know happens, right? And so the effort there was to try to just make a comment, and it's using the word may, just simply to try to say it is a tool. It is a tool that if we see a specific type of housing, then it can be part of that plan development with a developer.
Understand.
I would say if the crux of the concern is saying we're like looking out for the developer on line 217, 218, we just strike that sentence. This approach will likely encounter more resistance, because I like the fact that, it's listing some potential tools that we could use. But I get what Councilman Demotta is saying. It's kind of like saying we're looking out for, like, we might not do this because the developer may complain about it, but that wording I'm not too keen on. So if we can just strike that sentence, this approach, that it should be okay then. It still lists that it's a potential tool, but and that's it.
That I at least want to see that out, so I would appreciate that.
And so we have two.
I agree.
All right, we have three, we can move on, we'll strike that. From this approach
Approach.
all the way to exceptionally high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you, for wordsmithing purposes, if you put, for instance,
I was
the
at-
green tree
Yes,
subdivision.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was
For
going
instance,
to
yeah.
suggest as an example. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. Preface the next sentence with for instance.
For instance.
Got it.
All right. So 69 is done, we'll move on to page 73.
70?
73.
Okay, we're going to go back to 70.
I'm sorry, did I miss one on 70? Oh, sorry. Okay,
Okay, hold on. What page, 73 or?
now let's go to 70.
Okay.
I missed one on my key.
Oh, no problem. I was wondering about that, but okay, gotcha. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to give it to you straight here. I know you were adding more text to try and better put everything into context about missing middle housing. But sometimes less is more. And I really have heartburn with what you have on lines 2043, most of it all the way down to 2058. Because in detail here, you're describing the types of housing that this could be comprised of. You're saying the structure can contain units such as side-by-side duplexes, those in which units are stacked one above the other. A triplex could be side-by-side stacked or position one unit under two townhouse-like units above. And then this is what really got me. Structures with more than 4 units may contain up to as many as 9 to 12 units.
Hang on one second, Councilmember Demoter, not to interrupt.
Yeah,
I'm almost certain this is coming directly from a state.
Agreed, yes.
Okay.
but why?
So these aren't your words, these are
No.
from the state. And what was the purpose of putting it in this document?
Again, in the context of trying to educate what this term missing middle housing is really all about with as much clarity as necessary. We also added the graphic at the top.
Yep.
To try to do an illustration of what all of that kind of smashed together in a community would kind of resemble. And so please also understand that graphic is new also.
It is.
To accompany that text. And again, the text and the graphic are derived straight from the state's language regarding missing middle housing.
Okay.
So I guess here's my question. Do you think that we can clarify from, this is pulled directly from the state? Like, I don't know if we put in a footnote at the bottom, this is in no way to direct the future of Mount Airy, it's for informational purposes only, something along those lines to where, because we know it's coming directly from the state, right? But, I mean, I don't even know if Councilmember Demoter knew it was coming directly from the state, so I wouldn't know if future councils or planning commissions who do look back at this document would know that it's coming directly from the state. So
I can
I
do
think
that.
that anything that is for informational purposes only and should not be used to lead the town of Mount Airy into the future, maybe we put that as a footnote in each of those sections, just to clarify.
Can I make well, let me get to the real crux of the issue here. The next sentence says on line 2051, the town zoning codes could be amended to allow a new range of housing types, such as those described here. Okay? Now, is that your wording, that sentence?
No.
See, to me, I appreciate that this is what the state's saying, but we don't need to put all this in here. I mean, this in this master plan for future councils, this could turn into MXD at a nuclear detonation level. Because somebody could come along and say, I want to develop some zoning that allows 9 to 12 units per block. I don't think we want that. And here's, just hear me out, just give me a minute here. I don't understand why we're being so defensive in this fair housing analysis instead of offensive. To me, if it were me, I'd be saying, you know what? Mount Airy is blessed by a wide range of zoning categories. We have something like 14 zoning categories, okay? To include R3, high density. We have this thing called MXD, which is a zoning category, and it includes the tools to do all these things. It even includes in MXD as one of its objectives, something like encourage housing diversity within multiple land uses and XYZ. So if this were just my document, I would be taking an offensive position and saying, we're a small rural town, we don't have much infill left to put in our town. And we've got MXD zoning, which covers this kind of housing and promotes housing diversity. And that's the way I would present this. We're making it sound like we think we need all this. And I don't believe this is right for our town. So I would not be saying any of this. And the previous version had none of this in it.
Right.
I was better off with the last version we saw at Workshop 2 and taking all this stuff out, because you're sending the message that we might want to do this stuff.
Right, so as you can see, the line out beginning on 2054 was the original short version of trying to describe this state term. And
I know, and
so-
I had problems with that, but after seeing everything you've added,
Right.
I'd go back and live with the other language, I mean, if I had to.
I understand. And again, all I'm trying to do is, provide the reader what kind of housing is being pushed within the state. And I'm neutral on whether we even want to have in our analysis the missing middle element. The state prefers that we do, and so how we treat it, I'm easy on adjusting any of this. All I wanted to do was kind of give to the council what the state says on this topic.
No, and we appreciate it a lot. I want to try and just simplify something very quick and see if we can all come to a consensus. So if you go back to page 69 where all of this starts, it is saying we have to have fair housing analysis in there, and they are the ones coining the new term missing middle housing. If you start basically at 2029, where it starts, read down through the middle of 2035, and it ends at couples and the elderly.
Okay.
In just that couple sentences, it is saying exactly what missing middle housing is. It's a newly coined term referring to multifamily dwelling units within a structure, generally between 2 to 4, that fit in the form and context of an established single-family neighborhood. The idea is that this type of housing can benefit populations such as singles, couples, and elderly. Period. Done. There is nothing else that's added. It's not saying it's going to be, there's no specifics about changing zoning codes or anything. It is a direct definition of what it is. It's in. The state should check it off. I would say that we stop it at "and the elderly" in the middle of 2035, and then that is it. Do we have a consensus on that?
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree, because Ralph, this is
good.
coming right out of the state. So if somebody really wanted to get more into the meats and bones and the details, they can go that. But at least like what Council President said, it's getting them to that area.
Because again, even if we put a footnote in here, the fact that it says the town zoning codes could be amended, the
Yeah.
fact that that's in the master plan based on recent history
Yeah, that's an
does
invitation.
not,
Exactly.
so
I would,
that's,
Can I also just point out real quick, this Carroll County Housing Study, it does say conduct an educational campaign on the need of a variety of housing types to support healthy, stable communities.
Yeah.
So there's education that's possibly coming
yeah,
from the county.
From the county
Not
side.
just the state.
right. And I just would hate for somebody's interpretation
Yeah.
to be because it's in the master plan, we have full range to do it.
yeah.
That's not,
No,
so.
I like this.
If we have a consensus on just ending it at "and the elderly" in the middle
Yeah.
of 2035, then then I think we can move on.
And remove the graphic on page
We'll
7.
move
Yes,
everything
please.
else, everything
Gotcha.
else. And I think that
Down to 2058.
Yeah.
you're going from just 2029 to the middle of 2035.
Right. And Council President, if I could just quickly say, and most of you know this, that oftentimes when we talk to the public about what is the right elements of housing and what types and all that, oftentimes, as you may have heard yourselves, we hear the term generational housing. Excuse me. And that's, I think, a concise phrase which basically says from the first-time owner out of college that wants to have their own place all the way to the elderly couple or widow or widower that wants to have a low-maintenance cottage, everything in between, that whole gamut is called generational housing. And so you may hear that, and even in the public hearing we have in January, as their way of describing, we need to have that array and variety as we stay and enjoy the town. We want to be able to have that agility of what's the right residence for us at the right time in our lives.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So we can move on to, and Steve, we have a consensus. You were comfortable with?
Yeah, we do. I just want to thank him for that educational portion, because I think that helps all of us. So if anybody in the public asks us, we've got the information and a place to refer them to. So I appreciate you at least having it in here for us.
Council President, I would just like to also thank him that I know that he keeps his own personal opinions out of the writings of this document, and it's not any of his own wording put in. It's mainly quoted verbatim from the state language on this.
I just, again, when you're looking at recent history, if it's in the master plan, then the council, whoever those elected officials are,
Good
can
call.
interpret that in which way, which then can be held up in the court. I just want to make sure there is no room for separate interpretation. If this is informational. Understood. Sure. You know,
May I ask for one other consideration? I think it would help.
is it new text?
It's in the proposed new text that we're taking out, but there's one point that's a good one. If you look at just hear me out, look at line 2049.
Okay.
Okay, and we could change the wording, but this is the part that I would keep. It says, however, the primary factor is that the structure should be compatible with the existing homes in the neighborhood regarding form and scale. I think we ought to include some kind of wording like that. And that's very similar to the wording in some of the objectives for MXD. And I had some wording on page 4 of my comment set. I really do think just like one sentence like this that says, addition of middle housing should be compatible with the existing homes in the neighborhood regarding form and scale. Even that puts a marker down that says, we don't want to have a surge in a bunch of townhomes. Whatever we add has to be complementary within that community.
Well, I think that's covered in the definition that the council president left in. If you look at line 2033-34, that fit into the form and context of an established single-family
Okay.
neighborhood.
All right, very
So
good.
that,
Very good.
I get what you're saying, but it's in there.
Yeah.
Be very careful. We can't pick and choose
Right.
what we want
Out of the states.
strictly based on the next, we're here now, some of us for a couple more months, some of us for 2 more years. I don't want to hamstring a future council either, but I also don't want to lead them into something. So I don't want just our thoughts to dictate the future of other councils. So, I understand that we didn't like this section, but we do like this section. That's going to be up for that council to decide based on the wording.
I think those were good changes, and I appreciate listening to my rationale for deleting that text. Thank you.
Yep. All right, page 73, looks like,
Before we get into I believe during our discussions at the meeting on 25, that it came to the conclusion that the wording of this is exactly from the zoning code for the most part. So we took verbatim from our current code. So
and that's the same with all the other zones as it is?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a consensus to leave as is? I don't want
I do.
to
Yeah.
change anything that's code, written. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to 78.
Before we go to that, can we look at the modified map for the designated comprehensive land use? I think it's the third or fourth one in. Shows the change with the Harrison LaShure property being conservation in the northeast quadrant, quarter, or that portion. And then.
Hold on, say that again. What was that?
Yeah, the conservation to the northeast portion of
Okay.
the property.
Okay.
And then the rest of it being low-density residential. And if you look still down to the South Main annexation, we still left that with the MXD and the residential buffer against the other residentials. I don't know if you still want to leave that MXD,
Right here.
or if we want to
Where's
go
that?
with the OPE. That would be on your maps.
Bottom left-hand side of the map, the blue.
Blue corner.
Yeah. Talking about right there, South Main.
I thought we were taking MXD out of this plan.
Well, we didn't have a consensus on that, and that's why I'm bringing it back up. Again, that whole parcel was OPE in the previous plan. So we can turn the blue back to OPE, and we can take the residential buffer and still leave it as OPE.
What would it be if we didn't make an MXD or OPE? Did we have another option? Or should we discuss another option?
I would, honestly, with our low level of industrial and/or commercial land in this town and what is proposed as future zoning, since we took out Harrison LaShure as OPE, I would revert that back to OPE, mainly due to the fact that we do need some form of commercial or industrial land in this town for the tax base to not dwindle or solely be based on residential, since mainly due to the fact that residential never generates enough tax to cover their expenses for the town, while commercial's a little bit better. MXD also allows a residential component down there that might not be compatible overall with the town. So I would put that back to OPE, because that might work better in the future if it comes back online, that zoning classification.
With that whole future annexation, again,
Yeah.
future annexation should come in at R1.
Yeah.
And then the applicant can choose what it would be. So we could leave it as low-density residential.
I'm for that approach. I think it was our first workshop where we talked about, we didn't want MXD because we think it needs improvements. And until the improvements are made, I'm not voting for anything new MXD in this town. And number two, we talked about OPE, how we have absolutely no experience with OPE. I'm not voting for anything OPE in this town either. So if you guys want to make a consensus on that, knock yourselves out. My vote is to just make it R1, understanding it can be modified.
But as long as we make a point, I mean, I would still think it OPE, because we can just say it's going to come in as low-density residential. They have to apply it for annexation on both of them, because I just think we're making a long-range strategic mistake by not showing that we're willing to consider that. And they would have to make it as part of the annexation agreement, what they want to make it as. So no matter what property we're talking about, it's always going to come in as R1, but it at least shows where a potential development for OPE or some other type can go within the town, more so than just straight residential all over everywhere.
You have my opinion. The rest, fellow council members, you may do what you wish.
What would transitional commercial look like there? Like, I mean, I feel like that would fit right there as well. And then it gives you the commercial component a little bit, and it's right there on the 70 exit, so. I don't think residential, I mean, I'm for residential, low density, but I don't think residential fits in that location right there with it being right off of 70. Nobody wants their house backing up to 70.
John, can you explain one more time that anybody that comes in with that annexation already has to come in at R1 and then,
Technically, that's the way it's supposed to come in at R1. Now, the applicant can request, prime example, regular property, they were requesting R2 when it was coming in. But if the property was just to be annexed blanketly with no land use, it would come in at R1 or low-density residential.
they can request that zoning change outside of the master plan, regardless of what it says here?
Once it goes through the annexation, yeah, I mean, this helps, so by having this MXD, OPE, CC, general commercial, then when it comes in for annexation, it would be either, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God. It would be consistent with the master plan. So, like Harrison LaShire, if it were to come in, and this is the land designations that were future land designations, you know, when they came in, they said, we want conservation and low-density residential. Well, then it's complemented by the plan. So the plan already sort of shows the future land use.
Okay.
So by leaving it MXD or OPE or general commercial, it sort of dictates if it's in compliance with our 2023 master plan, comprehensive master plan.
What is,
Make any sense?
Yeah.
give us an overview of transitional commercial. That's intriguing.
Yes, LC and NP, which is neighborhood professionals, really more for one or two lots transitioning from a more intensive use. The LC is limited commercial, which has a lot of restrictions. Again, the South Side Plaza came in because there's a square foot maximum square footage of a building it could be. And, you know, it can't exceed that. If it wants to exceed that, it has to come in and ask for a special exception to increase the building footprint. So I don't know if that's the best
I'd be
choice.
open to those categories. I'm not open to OPE or MXD.
Yeah, we understand. What are the thoughts on the planning commission on this piece of property?
Well, it was OPE in the last one, and nothing happened.
Right.
And we were just, you know, with, I don't even know how, I mean, with MXD and everything, we're still, again, limited with existing zoning, and, I mean, I would be okay with OPE again, just as it's consistent from the last master plan.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of change, you know, around that area
Okay.
anyway.
Can I ask you, Martina, it looks like, because everyone's asking about the transitional commercial, it looks like that's what's right next door with this Helene's place. Looks like they're transitional commercial.
With which place, sorry, what was that?
Helene's right next door to you, the spa.
Yeah, that has, yeah.
That's
I
transitional
thought- yeah, 'cause
commercial.
That's like the, what is it, the Verizon building is there and that.
Yeah, and then across the street, you've got,
Yeah. So would that be considered more transitional?
yeah, that's listed, it looks like it's a transitional commercial on here.
Yeah.
Is that what that is, John?
You're saying along South Main Street?
Yeah,
Yes. This
Where that- what's it
darker
called, the
blue is
spa?
the MXD.
Oh, gosh, the Medi Spa?
La Med Spa. Yeah,
Bella, yes.
La Bella Med Spa. That looks like,
They're actually coming in and asking for LC
Yeah,
to have a larger footprint, because
Because there's
they're
also
NP.
The barbecue place is right there, the vet is up there. So it leaves the door open for lots of little.
so that kind of gives you guys an idea. It looks, we've got a smattering of
If I could just
transitional
remind the council, where you have the black line there, they requested to go to LC
Yeah,
on this
okay.
plan, to the houses to the right of the black line. And we don't generally try to put CC next to residential.
Correct.
So that's why we have the LC. And then we had originally partitioned that where I think our low-density housing in that one section, so we wouldn't. And then MP is really just for existing housing that you're converting.
You got some comments?
The thing I want to point out is that even though a lot of the council hasn't seen OP&E, I mean, Councilmember Munder and myself went through a whole drill of that with the Harrison LaShire property when the IDA was the deed carrier of that property. I don't think OP&E is a zoning category that would scare me away. I think it's a good zoning for something that would bring in something along the lines of medical facilities, offices, educational type facilities, things like that. So I wouldn't, I'm trying to relieve some fear of OPE. If we go to a transitional commercial or something like that, that's fine. What I don't see on this property, in all honesty for the future of the town, is that, I mean, you're right up against I-70, and you're in an area that if you were going to do something other than residential, that would be where you would do it. So,
All right. So do we have a consensus on, I'll throw out,
I might, a consensus on taking out the MXD, and I wasn't sure of consensus on what, taking out or removing the MXD zoning on that and replacing it with office park employment zoning classification for that.
all right, do we have any other council members in agreement with that?
I think that's a better option.
Yeah.
Do we want to leave the residential element in there as well, or do you want to have that removed?
Before you start talking residential element as in,
This is the low-density portion of that property, just north of the blue MXD,
okay, I would put that whole,
back to OPE.
So you don't want to, were there any takers for the transitional commercial?
Might bump into more problems with that if
Or a limited commercial, or?
somebody needed more square footage. That's what the doctor ran into. He just ran out of square footage,
Yeah.
and that was
yeah.
his business. So that was one of the logic behind.
I might be putting John on the spot, but, so if you don't have the answer, we can look at it later. But any open space requirement on OP&E?
I don't think there is.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, but anyway, if there would have been, that might have been a factor.
Yeah.
Steve, what were you saying about the houses that, I was looking for the black line and didn't really understand what you were saying.
Yeah, if you look on the, right above 70, you look at the black line with the white dashes on it, to the right of that, between 27 and that, those are the houses that requested
In the future,
LC.
future rezoning
On the other
requests.
side,
They're asking for rezonings of these properties
Okay, to LC.
to LC that sort of back up to this property.
Would OP&E kind of co-align with that LC?
I think that would be an okay blend.
All right,
Or transitional commercial, I mean, whatever you can get three people to agree to.
I would stick with OP because transitional commercial, in my understanding, is more of a transitional area, like onesies and twosies type lots, as you're transitioning from like a commercial area to a residential, kind of like along South Main. It might not be set up for a whole large tract of land for that type of zoning classification.
Jason, thoughts on the OP&E?
I would prefer LC there, but I could live with OP&E.
I could go with LC there.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to jump in on the LC, I'm for that.
John, I'm gonna lean towards you.
I would suggest sticking with the OPE.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have a consensus with OP&E on that one.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to page 86.
Did we ever, on the full property, did we ever solve that on page
We're
78?
not getting into that today.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Page, I just wanted to make sure that we got sidetracked, so.
We didn't skip anything but before 86, correct? All of the red lines were already previous discussions. Was 84 previous discussions, or did I skip one?
Page 78, did we just,
78's,
you guys are good?
78 stays industrial.
we weren't discussing that per John, correct? That's,
Right, I think we were keeping it industrial when we
Yes.
come back to
Okay.
that portion of it after this is adopted. Then we'll play over
Just
that.
wanted to
okay,
make sure.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So then we'll move to 86.
I'll serve you that.
Just real fast, I hope I didn't miss, was 84 and 85 red line changes from the previous workshop, or is that new additions?
That is correct. That's simply updating the goal descriptions that we resolved
But those
earlier.
are already, we've already come to a consensus on that.
That
That's
is
what I-
true.
That's what I thought, that's why I skipped those, okay. So then we're on page 86. And this was already a consensus, it looks like, so we can move on from that. So we're gonna move on to chapter 5.
Consensus to leave this text?
Based upon council's consensus, the previous missing middle housing discussion determined also whether this objective remains as is edited, or is deleted.
And it says whatever edits must also be made.
Okay, so we did not have a consensus.
Did
on
not
this
have a
text,
consensus on this.
Just on the fact that it needed to be changed.
Right, so this is an extension of the earlier discussion of missing middle. Do we want to even have an objective that now gives any sense to the reader that we're pushing it, advocating it, ensuring that it's in any future residential development plans, that's kind of what's embedded in that. It's highlighted because it was brought up on November 25th.
I had a
And there was no resolution, and so it was to be discussed here. I think from what we discussed earlier, that this objective would come out,
Yeah,
is kind of the tone that I got from the previous discussion.
I would probably agree.
I had a big
we
issue with
remove that,
this.
we don't
Yeah.
push the rhetoric.
Okay,
Okay, so then the consensus from the council will be just to remove.
Very good.
Take out all of C4 too.
correct. And I'll update that as all of them are rolled up into chapter 9. It'll ripple into chapter 9 as an edit and a deletion there.
So we're gonna move on to chapter 5, and I'm going to probably speed up this process as we go a little bit. Page number 89. So it looks like. It looks like it's just more of a consensus to focus upon open space.
Amenity design.
Yeah.
I'm good with.
I'm good.
I'm
with
good.
it. Yep.
And then, real quick below that, on 89, we removed shared. Any open space amenity should have development. Yep, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, any open space, yeah.
So we're on the 90. Just removing
Yep.
employment.
It's just making it accurate.
Yep, that's fine.
Again, we'll have to bring that up to date to match that map.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll just change the numbers on here to be fluid with the other.
So again, Harrison Lasier will not say OPE, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good with that. We can move on to 95. I'm sorry, real quick, something just caught my eye. Can you go to 91, Ralph? The number 2 in red, the TBD, what is that? I put a note on that just to ask.
Yeah, so that refers, unfortunately, these tables won't be broken up in the final version. It's just because of the edits, everything starts to, whenever I have a table, sometimes it'll break it. But it refers to the,
Oh, back to the chart. Okay,
right,
got
on the page 90, next to the bottom, it has Beck. And so we had earlier debates as to how did we want to address that particular parcel, given, the past discussion, so.
and then actually, I'm sorry, we're gonna go to 93. Page 93, just looks like a little bit of wordsmithing, just making sure everybody's good with it. Removing the word remediation and adding assessment of the toxic residue, I'm fine with that. Good. And now it's in 95. So we're good to unbold the top I am.
Yeah.
One more council member that's okay unbolding? Okay, so we're good there.
Yeah, so if I may, then the remaining part of that was Council Members Demoter's emphasis on limiting, putting in the plan, because we've chosen our growth projection to be the low scenario, then that should now draw a line straight to the number of permits that we allow from the town staff per year per project. And so you can see within the margin notes, there was, and I hopefully, Councilmember Demoter, I captured
Yeah, that is.
kind of that wording that we were throwing around on November 25th. So I didn't stick the wording in as a direct edit. I apologize because I was unsure, frankly, as to whether that captured your tone.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
And the rationale here is we have all these tables and we show these different scenarios, low scenario, mid scenario, high scenario, about how many units per year. And we say it in the document, we're kind of striving to the 12 units per year, but we really want no more than the 24, which is in the code. So if we're truly striving for a target of 12 units per year, then let's say that. And that was the purpose of this extra text.
I would just leave it out, because the low scenario in the graph above says 12 units a year, mid scenario is 24, unless we put somewhere, because it's setting ourselves to something that may have to change unbeknownst to us or something. So I don't like setting a target restricting something, which sounds bad, particularly for construction of homes, but it just might fall with, if it's a townhome development or something else, that just the way the development falls with the units, there might be more than 12 units per year. If we're setting a target, it kind of potentially restricts it and could potentially draw out the build-out of a development. I'm not saying we would or bend over backwards to allow more because the developer wants it, but I just think setting a hard target's kind of problematic.
Let me give you my logic. And we can use a different word. We can say apply a guideline. But the point is, the code already says you can apply for a waiver. You know, if you want more than 12, if you want more than 24, tell us why. If it's to the benefit of the town, then we may grant you that waiver. But at least this is being very clear that we really want to limit the pace of our growth to 12, and then, you know, really, if we can't meet our aspirational guideline, then no more than 24, which is what's stated in the code. So if you want to change some of the words like target and cap, but my proposal is to actually say what we mean. I've seen other town plans that actually do this. Westminster says, here's our cap for.
As you just
I'll say, I'm not going to get into a
Oh, no, go ahead,
so
sir.
what I'm
Sorry,
saying,
sir.
It basically says for the town build out under the low scenario. That's what we as a council have a consensus that we're using the low scenario. I have no problem stating what exactly the low scenario is. I mean, obviously people can see it on the chart, but if we wanted to add in this text, I will start a consensus that's fine adding in the text of 12, no more than 24, if we have a consensus on that.
But it also recognizes the reality of our water and sewer limitation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which has kind of been the big push along this entire master plan. Yeah, so
You can't avoid that.
I'll be honest with you, I would actually like to pull out the or 24. If it's 12, it's 12. And it just is what it is. And if that doesn't work for you,
And
then,
if you think the word target's too strong, say the word guideline.
no, I like
Okay.
target.
Well, then I'm glad I have
If
somebody that supports it.
Yeah, if we're saying it's low, then we don't need to beat around the bush about that. It's low.
Correct.
Okay.
What it is.
Just 2 quick points, and that is, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, when the state came back and says you have to show clear analysis on what you believe the projected growth of your jurisdiction is going to be. So this suffices to
Yeah.
check that box. And when we choose the low scenario, and again, that was in great deference on looking back at what the analysis similarly was in 2013. and looking at the census data and looking at other data showing the growth and the population, et cetera, within the town.
Yeah.
So we arrived at that quite easily. John arrived at that quite easily. And so adding on what we want to do as far as now making hard decisions as to how much permitting we allow, I totally agree with what was already said about adequate facilities. We all know that the permitting process doesn't occur until the concept plan is approved through the Planning Commission, and that process there alone examines under paragraph 25 adequacy of all of our critical infrastructure and public services. So I have no issue with adding in the added words to emphasize we're going to draw a line on how much we grow.
John, do you have any problem with that? I mean, I know you're,
I would just make sure we leave the 24,
yeah, I
max
mean, I
24 instead of taking that
I
out.
think we have to. I would just prefer to take it out, but no, I'm good with,
I'm fine with it.
I'm good with the text as it states. Do we have the consensus? Okay, we have 3. All right. We'll go
If
down.
I could just add, where would you like for that to be inserted? Just to be sure I get it right.
Wherever you think it needs to be in that section.
If I applied it right behind 2557 at the end of master plan cycle period,
That sounds great.
great, thank you.
All right, so we'll move down to the bottom of 95. I'm fine, yeah.
And so if I may jump in, Council President, what you see now on the next 2 pages is yellow highlighted text, and I'm trying to describe basically a pull directly from our code. It was already mentioned with regard to limitations on coding or zoning any annexed lands, and so what I decided to do, so that you guys didn't have to chase into the code book for this particular topic, we're in the topic of annexation is where we are. And so thanks to the good eyes of the town administrator, Heather, I'm going to tip my hat to you. She was the one that put us onto the words that you see in yellow on the next pages. And if emphasis is starting at 2571 on page 96. It was mentioned earlier by John, and you can see there the code strictly says that it's introduced at R1. Yep. Which is, of course, synonymous with low-density residential. And then it's later whatever we prescribe in these maps, as I understand it, by ordinance, obviously from the legislative body,
Yeah.
that we now go forward with that annexation with whatever we, see here in the master plan. So,
Okay.
yeah. Is that right, John? Heather, have I got that? Okay.
I mean, I'm fine leaving it in.
Yeah, so again, this was trying to be instructive, the yellow highlighted. So, I mean, I intend to pull that out. I just wanted to put the code right there in that same paragraph where we're talking about annexation.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
So it's just a reference that would make it
Just a
handy.
reference, okay.
Just for you to
I'm
see
sorry.
it, and it'll all come
I
out.
thought you meant a reference for future councils.
Well, I was hoping, sorry, Council President, I didn't mean to.
You could leave it in there. My only fear about leaving it in there is if it were to change for some reason,
Yeah.
that we have a conflict, but either way, it's whatever the
Yeah,
council.
that was actually my thought about, once I said I'm good leaving it in there, if an executive body in the later years does change it, then it would have to change in the master plan as well.
Right.
So I was just a little confused as to what the
Yeah,
purpose was there.
and because annexation talks about starting at R1, I also added the R1 district wording there right behind it, so everybody had a clear understanding of what that means when we start our annexation effort at R1, that's all. So, yeah. So I intend to pull all that yellow out.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So we do a little footnote to just reference the code and where the annexation stuff is?
Maybe that's probably a happy medium in the two, is we add a
And that
footnote.
way you don't have to have all the text. You can
But we
just have-
don't have the text. That way, if it does change, the master plan necessarily doesn't have to change, but we just have a
Because,
footnote.
because the one thing I do like about this reference language is that it states that it comes in, and any annex comes in as an R1.
Correct.
And can be changed at the request of the developer or person that's requesting the annexation.
And with council agreement.
Yeah,
Yep.
but it just says that,
By ordinance, right.
Okay, we have a consensus.
So I can add a footnote that points to 112-3 in our code.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's fine.
So here, if you'll indulge me, you can give me 30 seconds and then tell me to stop. I'm just thinking out loud here. So remember the last workshop, we talked a lot about Harrison Lashir. First, we said we want to split zone it for conservation with some R1 and some R2. And now we're saying for Harrison Lashir, we're going to zone that as R1 because that's what we are supposed to do for an annexation. Is that what I'm hearing? As the starting zoning?
But didn't we signify it as low-density residential, which could be R1, 2, or 3?
Well, just
R1 and 2, yeah.
See,
I hear what you're asking.
because I'm concerned, here's my point. I think the council felt like we really want to have a say in what that should be for Harrison Lashir. And we all want conservation in R1 and R2. That's kind of what we all said we wanted. But now it's almost like, well, technically, we have to bring that in as an R1. And the petitioner can say, I want to change the zoning. So as long as we're saying what we want, like whenever we get to the Harrison Lashir section, it should say what we think it should be. You know what I'm saying? Is that making any sense?
Well, that's the way, that's the way it's designed. If, for example, going back to the Rigler property. He could have come in wanting townhouses. He could have asked for R7. But what's in our master plan, and if it's not defined in our master plan, it defaults to R1.
Okay, so he's got to he or she has to make the case. If they want something other than R1, they really have to explain why. And it's up to the council and the PC to go along with it.
I would agree with it. John, does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the sidebar.
So we're good leaving low-density residential, which does have an R1, R2 element for Harrison Lashir. I think we already had a consensus on that.
Yes.
Won't revisit that just yet.
Changes to R1 for Myersburg, yeah, that's fine. All right.
Are we on now?
We're on 99, which,
I'm sorry, could you go to page 98? Quick question. The Myers property, there's a question there. It says change to R1 per blah, blah, blah. Right now it says office park and employment for Myers property. Is that what we want, or per this conversation we've had, that should be brought in as R1?
go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, so I think we just resolved that.
Okay, that's what you guys just
Yeah,
said.
so in other words, it can stay as it's written in there with the understanding of how we start with R1, and then by the master plan and by ordinance from the council, we can change
Okay.
it to whatever we want it to be, which is OPE. So my apologies for putting that note in there. We've resolved it now.
Okay.
So-
All right,
Okay.
So it stays OPE,
okay.
as I understand it. John, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to remember where the Myers property is. I think that's up here along north
At
of,
the doctor's office?
What doctor's on?
Is that kind of over by you, Martina, the Myers property?
no, I think Myers property, I think is up along 27.
Proposed OPE.
These are
Oh, that's
future
right, 'cause it's a
annexations.
future annexation.
Is that those little corners by Mount Airy Apartments or anything? It doesn't seem.
What I'm getting at is, what do we really want that to be?
Oh, that's actually at the tip of the Harrison LaShire property. It's a Myers property. It's one right on the corner of Myers, or Woodersville and 27.
Isn't it a
It's
small
It's a
little
single residential.
Oh,
house.
that house the county used to own and just sold
County
it.
still, did they sell it?
I think they sold it. I know the property you're talking about. Yeah, that really small house on the corner is Waterville and 27 by Neal's property.
Yeah, it's not a big parcel.
No, that's already in the town,
You seen, it's opposite the medical.
the dental
East
office.
side, the dental
So I think the reason that was OPE was because Harrison LaShire was
Right.
potentially OPE. So if Harrison LaShire is low-density residential, then
Well, and again, I'm not even sure, I guess we're gonna leave it in there, but, yeah, I'm not sure if it's been sold. I'm not even sure, do we want to have that as an
Yeah, I
annexation?
think the county sold it.
well, even though they sold it, it should still be a potential future annexation area.
It could be. I mean, but like Sam should.
Because if you're going to
change that to
annex
R1.
Harrison
I would think we'd want to
LaShire,
make it consistent with the rest of the property.
That's where I was going with all this.
Okay.
which would be low density.
Density residential.
R1.
Yeah.
So that'd be R1.
Change that to R1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or I'll change it to the wording shown in the rest of the chart, low-density residential.
Gotcha, yep.
Okay.
All right, we're on 99.
These are just revised numbers we put in there, R1,
Okay.
which maybe we should put that as low-density residential as well, so it's consistent with,
Okay.
Yep.
I'll do that. R1 now is low-density residential.
yeah.
All right, with consensus with that, I think that's good. We're on page 100. This was just another question about changing per code.
Right, again, we've resolved that in our previous discussion.
Yep,
So
skip that, move
I
on
would,
to,
I would ask to remove that comment, so.
yeah. And then,
Well, we're keeping M as office park employment, right? Yeah. That's staying office.
That's right. It stays as it's written there. Yeah.
and then, Councilmember Demeter asked for this sentence.
Where are we at here?
At the
Yeah.
bottom of 100.
Makes sense.
37.
Carl,
Makes
that-
sense. I'm good with, yeah, it makes sense to put it in, that's how we're gonna
Yeah.
calculate that.
Is there a consensus to use 2.75?
Yes, I would say that's a good consensus because it actually came out, the Carroll County Housing Study brought out, kind of supports that for us too.
And we've consistently used that.
Yeah.
I just know that developers have used all different numbers in the past, so if we have
That's-
something,
That's the trick to it, is a developer will show up with
Yeah.
other
So I
numbers,
just wanna make
but
sure-
2.75
adding
is,
this in here, we can actually utilize this number. I just want to make sure that we are.
Yeah, and again, I defer to John on this, but I do not believe the 2.75 is captured in our code per
not.
se. It's not.
Not yet.
Be
But
something we
it,
want
but
to
it has been historically used when we estimate population growth
Okay.
per dwelling unit.
Well, then I like the fact that it's in our master plan.
And we're consistently using it.
All right,
Yep,
so
we're
we have
steady
a
on that.
consensus to leave that in here. All right. So now we will move on to page 101.
Well, I would like to make another case for that, but as your instructions, I can wait till a later date for that.
It looks like
Council
page,
President.
that's fine. It looks like page 101, we already had a consensus, so we can move on for that. 103. This was already approved.
Yeah, I think we might have taken care of that.
South Main Street should be OPE.
And the regular, we just took it out.
Yep. Yep.
But on the South Main Street, it does say the proposed zoning is low-density residential.
Yeah.
But this table just said OP and
To OP, yeah, so we just need to change the wording on that.
Yes, and the next map on the next page actually shows revisions showing that, and it does show OPE, and it shows the
Okay.
conservational and the low-density residential on Harrison Street.
See that on 2735?
Correct. 2735 will now read, the proposed zoning is OPE.
Okay. All right. So next page will be 108.
100 something. That might take care of a lot of it.
And if I jump in here, a lot of this red ink was basically a good discussion we had with Barney present to basically discuss whether it's necessary to have that level of fidelity to the CIP. And I believe, Barney, if I speak fairly, you agreed that it was unnecessary, but we could keep the high-level categories. We're on page 108.
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay. We already have two, so I'll be the third consensus on that, so we're good.
okay.
We'll go to 109. Looks like since the figures were removed, that note is not needed. I'm good removing that top level note. Consensus on that? Is removed, all right. Looks like we just have an intent of a sentence.
Looks like it was crossed out, though.
But was that, I don't know if that was a consensus from the council to remove that.
That's your comment, Steve, or questioned it.
Yeah, it says.
But upon reading it again, I think it made sense to take it out. It kind of
Okay.
didn't fit, maybe?
Yeah.
Then we have a consensus on that, they can stay. We'll now move on to chapter 6, page 117. It's like just adding these safety improvements, I'll agree with that, so we have a consensus on that. We'll move to 124.
Page 124.
124, yes, sir.
So I want to revisit this. So it says we agreed to take this out, but what's the harm in leaving it in?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
I know, I mean,
you guys.
I'm looking to Councilmember Munder.
I might have, as I said, I had to leave early. This might have been one of the sections that, right around the time I had to leave for a work engagement.
I think it's a good thing to keep in. You're putting a marker down that says, if we make these changes, you got to make sure it's not impacting our quality of life. So I think I think we ought to leave it in.
I think we leave it in.
I agree.
Okay.
So we can remove the red line on that. All right, we'll move to 126, please. Did we already agree to all of this, or was this from the 1125 meeting?
I thought
that we already
we
came to a
went,
consensus
we
on this.
did, I think.
Right, so my apologies. This is all from already, this is ground
From
we
workshop
already
two.
plowed.
Okay.
Right, right.
All right, perfect, because that's a lot of text.
Are we good on that?
Move to chapter 7, page 137.
What do you say? We don't have to go back?
Just gonna say,
You don't have to
safe
go back.
streets, I was dreaming about safe streets for a couple weeks after that. 7. Skipped it.
It looks like it's just more of a mindful note, Ralph.
We needed to add community center.
I agree.
Yeah, so the only point there is that just want to make sure our comments are aligned in different parts of the plan. And so that last sentence there talks about use, what the land use could be in Harrison Lashir, and what this paragraph says in the context of community facilities that we could possibly use it. So all I was making a margin note there, let's make sure that that sentence, if it stays in, aligns with what we agree to be the proposed annexation use. That's all I'm trying to do there, so.
And I would like to add in the need for a community center in that section. Is it already, because I didn't see it in there.
I think we did add that in. That was a comment from, I think, the second workshop.
Yeah, it says we would wish to add, I would think right after sports complex and community center should be restarted.
And community center, got it.
On a much-needed sports complex and community center should be restarted, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you good with that? Yep. Okay,
I'll add that in.
all right. We go to 140, please. Yes.
And these are just input from the town administrator correcting some numbers.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just go ahead and factualize that. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I had flagged that too early on.
And then we have a deletion of a sentence.
On the second one, yeah.
Do we have example of how to rewrite that sentence that's being removed?
On which one, page 140 or something else?
140.
I think he did, when necessary. Am I not?
The NIPD is supplemented, is that the rewritten part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're basically taking out stuff that should not have been
Right.
added in there.
All right, so we're good with that?
Hours in there.
Okay. All right, 142, please.
On this one, if Councilman Demotta has something else to say, I'll say the wording's okay for the most part. Maybe just put it at a different location, maybe towards the end of the paragraph or section on the Flatiron, because the current location seems to break up the,
Yeah, I agree.
it's in the wrong place.
Okay, I would be fine with moving it, and just so everybody knows, this wording is identical wording out of the 2013 master plan. So I thought it's applicable then, I think it's equally applicable now. I think it's important to include. But
Mayor, are you good with that wording, moving like to the end?
Yeah.
It does
yeah,
break it up.
I'm good with adjusting it downward, and that wording seems fine to me. I think, Steve, at one point you had used the word rehabilitation as well.
Yeah, I like that term because I think that is truly what you were doing with the building.
Yeah,
So
and
if
I
you
thought
wanna-
I had said something, maybe we didn't get this far into it, but I'm okay with the wording as it is. If we can throw the word rehabilitation in there somewhere, I can't remember where I added
Was
it.
it
so.
preservation and rehabilitation? Because
yeah, that's-
preservation kind of covers it, but it wouldn't hurt to
Condition,
have it.
warrant preservation, and rehabilitation, something like that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Do we have a consensus on that?
Yeah.
And
Ralph, see where I'm saying it?
Could you say what line you're at on?
It's line,
38, 33,
yep.
right
And
after the word warrant preservation, we'll add and rehabilitation, period.
And then the do, all the way down in red, goes to the end of the paragraph.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then Larry, just to complete the circle, part of my rationale for adding in that extra objective on historical tourism, you say it here on line 38, applicable to the Flatiron, but really, you want to promote historical tourism everywhere.
yeah,
So that's why I captured that.
yeah, I think it does, it folds in good, so I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thanks, guys. We'll move to 144, please. Margin comment request.
Hold on. What does the yellow mean here, Ralph? Is that just
Uh,
for?
So the yellow and the blue basically are to highlight, this is a discussion area. There's no real edit per se being proposed, but Councilmember DeMotor invoked a need to kind of flag that area for discussion. So I kind of turned to Councilmember DeMotor on this.
Yeah. No, I know what it is. Just give me a minute here. So the point is line 3897. I'm just trying to be precise. It says the most recent 2020 town survey comments consistently advocate for a center. Actually, there were hardly any comments in the 2020 town survey that asked for a community center. Now, there was the 2008 survey, and then Commissioner Butts, there was a special assessment survey specifically regarding whether there should be a community center. Those are the two surveys that identified that. So I think you might want to just say, you can say past surveys, you can say the 2008, and what was the title of your survey?
Needs
Bill?
assessment?
You can say the 2008 town survey and a follow-on community center needs assessment,
It was, yeah,
and then continue with your thought.
okay.
Could you say multiple town surveys, comments consistently advocate for a center?
again, just to be precise, the 2020 town survey, there were only like 4 comments that said we want a community center. So that's not accurate.
20 to 25 focus groups.
Understand, just trying to get the language accurate.
But that's because the 2020 survey left it off as an option.
That is correct, it was not included,
So they didn't put it in.
right. So I think the most precise way to say it is what we said, that the 2008 town survey and a follow-on community center needs assessment consistently advocate for a center, blah, blah, blah.
Have a consensus on that? Okay, we have
Yeah.
3. All right.
I got it.
Ralph, you got that wording?
You bet.
All right, thank you, guys. And then states a sentence needs to be rewritten. The center is provided by Cole.
The blue sorry, are we talking the highlighted blue sentence?
Or the underline, the harsh
Yeah.
reality on 3903, or are we starting at 3899?
3899, I think. Right, Ralph? For that comment?
I was leading it on Councilmember Demoter because it
Oh,
was,
sorry.
it just states that the sentence needs to be rewritten.
I'm sorry, well, talking about blue text now?
Well, that's what we're trying to
I'm
figure
asking
out.
you.
Yeah, RG 72, sorry, yeah, line
Residents look to
3899
joining
to
counties
3903, Steve, Councilman?
We're trying to figure out, you state the sentence.
Yeah, I don't know that I flagged this in blue. I was really flagging the above issue, which we took care of.
Yeah, so the recollection was that, that sentence in our November 25th meeting, the blue sentence, the blue highlighted sentence, which was written and authored by Cole and submitted, you felt on November 25th that it needed to be reworded.
I don't see an issue with the blue text.
All right.
All right, we're good with
It
it.
was on the yellow.
Thank you. We'll
Okay.
move to 145.
And again, yellow means there's no proposed text, it was just an area that
Flag for discussion.
flagged for discussion, exactly.
Okay, and this looks like, at this point, Councilmember Munder had left the meeting. Let me read it.
Yeah, I think the text is perfectly fine. I recall what my comment was. If you wanted to take credit for the fact that in 2022, the town replaced and upgraded the downtown recycle center, you could take credit for that action because we did that.
Right.
But you don't need to put it in here. I was just looking, it was a way to
And the-
give the commission credit.
And I think if I'm accurate, in deference to Commissioner Munder being on that
Yeah.
sanitation committee, you know.
Yeah.
we
And
did
I had
a lot.
brought it up because I used to be be on the recycle. So I was involved with Barney in,
So I think you're right. You
Pressing that.
had advocated something that would make it actually give credit to the town,
exactly,
but we didn't have the council liaison there.
exactly.
Oh, I'm good. I mean, if we want to take credit, I'm fine with the wording or put credit at either or.
And it's okay with me either way. But if you want to give the town kudos, put a sentence in there that says, I think it was 2022, the town refurbished and replaced the town recycling center. Something like that.
Council?
Oh, I'm good.
I'm good with you.
All right, so we have a consensus. We'll just add a quick line on that.
Okay, shoot it to me.
Shoot it to you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting a little slower here.
Yeah, I'm the one that can't read blue text from yellow, so.
It's hard to, it's
That was a terrible choice.
blue,
I just want to
blue
say,
highlight and black text is hard to read.
I want to point out that in my notebook here, I ran out of official sticky notes, so I started using Christmas present
Name tag.
labels. So here it says 'tis the season, and I have a couple more in here.
Just make sure they're returned in time to wrap the presents.
So anyway,
All right, we're gonna go ahead back down to page 3957 on page 145. Looks like it's just adjusting council in this paragraph.
what is this one?
Solid waste recycling collection.
No, I don't have any issue with that.
I'm going to go backwards a bit. I don't think we need to make an adjustment for redoing that downtown trash enclosure. 10 years from now, nobody's going to care that we put up a new fence over there. I appreciate the fact that it got done, but
Okay,
yeah, I
that
just
was fine either
don't see a
way.
reason to put it in there. It's one less thing to worry about.
All right,
Is that,
there you go.
I'm fine with that.
That's great with me.
Point out to future planning commissions.
All right, page, let's go to 147.
Looks like they were just
This was already
updates.
council consensus. Yep, we're good there. And then we have one thing from the 11:25 meeting. It's just removing, it's the Board of Recreation and Parks, not a commission, so that's just factual statements, so.
Right, it was the correct label, and also, I think both council members advocated that that be partnered with town staff.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
So page 149.
So this is kind of a hanger in my taxonomy in that we don't have an objective owner. So I believe we validated in previous discussions that it's a good objective, that we have somebody leading an effort to improve the library. But we did have difficulty, the planning commission, when I say we, the planning commission had difficulty getting a consensus from a objective owner. And so we first went to Cole, just being forthright here, asking if, in addition to the community center ownership of that objective, would it make sense for them to also take on the library objective? There was pushback, to put it politely. And so we just left it open as a TBD by whomever you think. And so again, under the premise that it's a legitimate objective, that we strive for a better improved library through the county. And again, our first try was to try to have that led by Cole. The other options, if you ask me for options, would be town staff, would be possible.
and I think that's essentially underway to the extent that Cole is digging right in terms of the senior center.
Yeah.
And the development of that along with the community center. And we're in discussion with the ability of the library to supplement, to reinforce, to support that initiative, and where possible, for it to blend. And they're on board. In fact, we're making progress in talking with Carroll County leaders.
I mean, I would say, Bill, I'm sorry to cut you off, but, I mean, Adil may not like me for this, but I do think that the Commission on Aging and Livability should continue working on this.
What was the pushback from Cole? Just too much?
I believe if I speak fairly, it was, the community center was pretty much the limit of their bandwidth to lead that one objective. And they felt like the library was not within the scope of livability. We had a good discussion on it, but she was strong in her position about it. So I respected it and thought, I just need to come to the council and let you guys decide if it is an objective we want to keep in the next 10 years.
Was there a consensus among the commission that agreed with?
Amongst
that-
us?
No, the Cole Commission that agreed with that.
I don't know that backstory, honestly, I don't.
Yes, it is. It is moving steadily in that direction. And we put the pressure directly on Carroll County leadership, and they are starting to come around too.
So is that Cole should have it? Okay, so,
Yes, more and more it's integrating with what Cole is vying for and championing for.
right.
Yeah. When we're getting more and more positive feedback from who we're talking with, the leadership in Carroll County.
Hey, Bill, can you bring your mic closer to you, because Carroll County CC'd or texted me and told me they couldn't hear you.
I'll say this, as a liaison for Cole, I don't want to get on Adele's bad side, but I think if we're going to the county, which we are, very extensively, I don't want them to hear from two separate voices based on the same building. So I would get a consensus from the commission that Cole probably should take the lead on the library, as it also is basically our senior center. I don't want the county to hear two different
Reinforce it, yeah.
things, so I think it would reinforce from top to bottom. Do we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
so we'll go ahead and add Cole to that. Thank you, Ralph.
it'll be cool, right?
Just don't tell Adele.
I understand.
Already know.
About to say, who's calling Adele?
I'll call her.
You'll be getting coal for Christmas, Tim.
All right, so,
And the bottom comment on 149 is not necessary.
okay.
My bad.
All right, chapter 8, 154. It's only one page on chapter 8.
Let's see. I'd just like to point out that some of these suggestions on this page in another chapter was brought forward by a town resident regarding form-based code, so it is included in here for discussion also.
Right, that's correct. And so this objective is one of ours. I mean, we've got skin in the game. When I say ours, the Planning Commission. And so by all means, if there are more references we can look at and reference as we move forward with updating our guidelines, architectural guidelines, then why not? So,
I like the fact, and you're good with adding the in coordination with town director of planning and town engineer?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
I have a consensus to add that text. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. Going down to the middle one. This was a resident of the town via email to council members and mayor on 11/18. Is this just adding in that website? The link?
It's just adding in all these other references to form-based code
Yeah.
that we're seeing in other jurisdictions for us to consider when we talk about how do we want to craft our updated architectural guidelines. That's all. So it doesn't say we have to. It just says under implementing tasks, here's some things you should do in order to go ahead and start that effort. So that's
I'm
all.
good with that. Do we have a consensus?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
All right.
Good to
Jason, you
look
said
at
yes.
it.
Okay, all right, so we're good with that. Chapter 9.
And if I may, Council President, Chapter 9 is no more than a roll-up of all the other objectives. It's just a revisit at the very end to make it handy when we do kind of do, I'll use the term audit of the objectives and their performance.
Okay.
So once adoption, we kind of look to Chapter 9 to kind of be the easy congregate of all the objectives in one place, so you don't have to flip at the end of every chapter. So Chapter 9 would get pulled out and we would say, for instance, hey, we're just going to look at these objectives in the coming quarter or whatever schedule we set up, and it just makes it easy. So it's a consolidation of everything we've already done, so.
Okay, so do we, I mean, I'm looking at 159, it looks like some things stricken out. 150, I mean, I guess 158's already been done from the previous. So we're at 159.
I mean, unless you want to,
This looks like it's just a duplicate.
yeah, it looks like it's just, to me, it's just as Ralph was saying, just a compilation of everything. So unless there's something really different about what's written,
The answer is yes, that's just a duplicate on that one.
Yeah, so it's just a duplicate on that. Let's move to, we'll just go through this really quickly. 161.
Yeah, we had already buttoned that one up.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's good.
This
Okay,
was previous with Barney's
Yep.
agreement on it, right?
that's what I thought. 163.
Because Barney owns that one.
That was the one we just talked about.
Yep, we just did that. Okay, so a lot of the stuff like you said, we've already done, so we'll just kind of, just triple check. 164. Yep, good. 166. Good. 67. Then we implemented that.
please, getting towards the end.
And
So looking at the missing middle housing, we,
What page are we on?
168.
That's the one we said we were taking out.
Yeah. So do we just want to put the exact same text that we agreed upon in this section? It's small enough, I think we can.
So if I'm not mistaken, we deleted that
Yes.
objective from chapter 4. We wrapped up chapter 4's discussion of middling by agreeing that we just take that out. if
Oh,
I'm-
correct.
So
So
again-
it's going back to the description of the missing middle housing.
Right, I was just
All right.
trying to make sure we reflect whatever we decide. So the decision previously was take it out, so it'll be.
Yeah, that'll be Xed out.
It'll be out of here, right.
Perfect. 169. That was already done, because we did the goal for the police station. And 170.
And the maps and stuff.
So, all right,
We done?
guys, we have gone through the entire,
No, missing it.
Do you have a page 170? We go from 69 to 71.
Say that again, Lynn?
I'm sorry, it is page 171, but we do go from 169 to 171.
We just noticed that.
Okay.
The missing middle, I think.
I got
The
you now.
missing middle.
Missing middle.
We're missing a page in the middle of the document.
We got a lot of middles missing.
Right, I'm referencing the previous draft to see if it's also that way there. 69.
Do you want to take just a 5-minute break?
If you want to, and then we can hit the executive summary.
Oh, the executive summary. okay.
So what was the last thing, executive summary?
It's
That's it.
it's a pagination error.
Yeah,
Is-
yep, that's
is-
fine.
Didn't mean to make a mess over there.
No, I'm looking at the previous.
Trying to, but.
We go right to the map appendix. I'll figure out what Word is doing.
Okay. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick 5-minute recess, just to stand up, stretch our legs. Because when we come back, we have one last thing to go over, and that's just the executive summary, which is a high-level overview that'll be in the beginning of the document, just explaining it. So we're gonna, it's new text, it's a new summary that has not been seen by the council. We'll do a quick review of it, and then we will go from there, and that'll end this. All right, take 5 minutes. We'll be back here at 8:50. Thank you.
CMC, can you please call ready to go?
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and continue the meeting. Thank you for the quick 5-minute break. So what we're going to do now is we're basically going to go over the final portion of the new added text into the document, which is a basic executive summary. What I'll do is I'll relinquish to Mayor Hushhour to just go over it, read some parts out of it, and then we will have a discussion and go from there. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I went through this and did a little bit of wordsmithing and added a couple of things. The main thing I added was appreciation for those who created the document, but also a little further explanation of annexation and how, I guess what I put in there was some rationalization that if on adjacent properties, if we don't annex them in, that doesn't mean the county's not going to develop them. And if they develop them, then we're not going to get any benefit from those increased residents or whatever they do to the property outside of there. So I'll just kind of, maybe a good way to go through it would be to, I'll just go through the first paragraph, did not change anywhere down to our town vision for 2033. As long as everybody's okay with that, then I'll go down to that paragraph. So,
Is this the time to make suggestions? Sounds like it.
Let's get through real quick.
Okay.
Just his explanation.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
all right, so our town vision 2033, if you go down to the second line, just to make the tenses line up a little bit better, I rewrote it as this plan is written with the intent of Mount Airy remaining a small town throughout the next decade with attributes of being unquestionably safe, where limited growth does not create congestion in our schools or on our roads, where adequate or even surplus water and sewer capacities exist, and where a revenue stream supports the necessary increases in public services and amenities. And then I left in everything past that. Okay. Okay, so a little bit of wordsmithing in there, but not a lot. I got rid of a couple of the words, limited development, got rid of that. Third paragraph, regional settings, didn't make a change there. Land use, housing, and zoning. The only thing I did there was got rid of the semicolons and the numbered section of it. So again, just a little bit of wordsmithing. So now that last sentence reads, where growth may occur, the plan does advocate for the infill of vacant parcels within our downtown zone, comma, infill within our other zoning districts, and appropriate rezoning and redevelopment of selected properties. So again, just a little bit of wordsmithing. Okay. Next paragraph, change the word that to this, where you get down to senior appropriate housing to meet this increasing demographic. I just thought that read a little bit better. Again, just wordsmithing. And then down at the bottom of that paragraph, made a substantial change with that last sentence, starting with, let me get to, all right, about, therefore, it is important to understand that annexations can support wise growth, offering potential sites for an additional wastewater treatment facility, offering additional water sources, and providing much-needed open space. Then I added, it is also important to realize any adjacent county-zone parcels are subject to development under county authority and regulation. The town must remain aware that the impacts of such adjacent development will be felt within the town's border while offering no offset to these inherent impacts. When faced with such situations, it is important for the town to realize that annexation may be in the best interest of Mount Airy in terms of finances and facilities. That's what I added to that one. Just kind of a, we can't just bury our head in the sand. Transportation network, no changes. Water and sewer infrastructure. The only thing I did was on the last sentence of that one, I added in that last sentence, therefore any water and sewer expansion for new development will be borne by the property owner, and then I added and/or developer. Under community facilities, I respelled aging, took out the E on that one, although either way would have been right. So just to let you know. So, and then down at the, let's see, I put senior/community center. It could have gone either way on that one, but made it senior/community, and that was above the aging correction. And then down on the last sentence of that, where it says more recreational spaces, I put more recreational and open spaces. Yeah. All right, and then citizen participation, just added a little more warmth toward the citizens by writing it as, starting with the second sentence, their dedicated efforts contribute significantly to the planning and development of infrastructure needs and amenities. Town residents' participation in the 2020 survey was considered in creating this plan, and their participation in public hearings will always be encouraged and valued as part of council and mayoral decisions. So put it that way to soften that up a little bit. A commitment to grow wisely. I thought it would read better if I wrote it as This plan has clearly stated vision and defined goals to enable the creation of a Mount Airy of 2033 that we can all admire. So just kind of broke that apart. And then in the end, I added one more paragraph that said, we would like to express extreme gratitude to the Planning Commission and Zoning Administrator for assembling this comprehensive master plan and presenting such a solid document for the council's consideration and acceptance. This effort required many meetings with commissions and stakeholders, multiple workshops, public comment throughout, and finally, a public hearing. It is a reflection of our entire community as we enter the year 2025, and we have extreme confidence that in 2033, Mount Airy will be a safe, vibrant, financially strong, and a place where people continue to see as, okay, I'm going to have to work on that, as a great place for their families to reside. So, okay, so that's the changes that I made, and now it's open.
Real quick, I just want to get a quick description of what exactly in our minds, and I'll lean on the Planning Commission and also the mayor, the purpose of an executive summary is, before we move forward.
Yes, so I'll go first and invite other commissioners. So the executive summary is typically kind of, in my terms, kind of the cliff notes for the reader to capture, you know, what the later paragraphs are going to thrust in more detail. But it sets the stage. If you can only read or have the time to digest, you know, a bit of a master plan, the executive summary would satisfy that for that type of desire, for that type of reader. So it kind of hits the high points, and it kind of adds assurance, my last comment, it kind of adds assurance as to where the intent is, regardless of the words hitting those marks or not. It sets the stage with the intent, as we would say in the military, it's the commander's intent statement, and how everything else gets detailed out. Just come back, and this is the spirit that we hope to see inside the rest of the pages. You know, any other commissioners?
I was just gonna say, I agree with you, and it's, you know, it's all about setting the tone for the next 10 years as best as we can. Looking at our little crystal ball to figure out what's best for the town. It's a very hard thing to do, so maybe this is just kind of a brief summary of the thought behind it.
Okay.
Yep. I think it offers a summary tone. It expresses pride in what we've been doing the last 10, 15 years. It speaks to a confidence that we're building on that. We're very committed to where we go from here, and it will continue to be positive, and it'll continue to be a community we're very proud to reside in.
All right, you agree? Yeah. Okay. That being said, do we have any suggestions?
Yes, and I appreciate the review of some of the wording changes and such. Let me go right to specifics. So the very first sentence, comprehensive master plan. If you look at my comment set on page number 1, if you look at my comment number 2, would you entertain broadening this a little bit and changing the wording to what I have, which is, this comprehensive master plan continues our efforts to wisely manage all growth, development, land use, and public services in a manner that protects and enhances our residents' high quality of life and community identity. I think that gets it more than just quality of life. It says we're going to do it in a way that protects and enhances, and we don't lose our community identity. And these were the themes that we captured in our vision statement and our strategic objectives. So it adds a little more intent to it. So if there are people who would offer consensus to that, I'd like to see that added. It's just changing the wording a bit and adding a little more commitment to, we're not just protecting, but we're enhancing.
I like the added wording.
Okay, we have a consensus. And I'm going to lean on Larry and obviously Ralph. I mean, you were the two main authors of this document as well, so.
I mean, I'm not going to give Ralph any more to do. I would suggest that that Steve, I could work with you to finalize this document.
Okay, but-
I'm okay with adding that
Okay.
if the majority of the council is.
It's fine with me. Okay.
All right.
So that's three.
Okay.
Okay, I have some other comments, and they're probably going to remain as written, but the second paragraph, I'm uncomfortable with, because you're saying things in here about there will be significant challenges that will demand our smart balancing of adequate public facilities, residential growth, and commercial industrial growth. Well, throughout the document, we didn't talk about balancing that. We said, until we have adequate public facilities, we're not growing. And even some of the text you have further down speaks to that. So if I could wave my wand, which this isn't going to happen, but I would take this whole paragraph out. Because in the 2013 executive summary, and a lot of this is modeled after 2013, they really didn't get into these kinds of challenges. You can go straight from your opening statement to your vision. The other thing I don't like about this is we say state mandated legislation and the ever increasing costs in running a small town. You know, it almost lays the groundwork for people in the future saying, well, you know, we had to grow because we needed the tax money, or we needed to raise our taxes. I mean, there are ways to save money in a small town. It's also based on what you spend your money on and how you spend it. And then highlighting the state mandated legislation, we already addressed that further in the main document. So I'm sure you're all going to want to let this stay here, but I just didn't like the way some of the words were here. So let me just leave it at that, because I think it's probably staying the way it is. But I wasn't comfortable with some of that wording. The town vision statement. Let me see, town vision. That's fine. Regional setting. If you go to your third line, it says, it is located approximately 1 hour outside the Washington-Baltimore metropolitan job markets. Mount Airy is also located. Can we say Mount Airy is a bedroom community located? Because we really are a bedroom community, and that speaks volumes about who we are and what our priorities are and such. So if we could, if you were willing, change also to is a bedroom community, if you would be comfortable with that.
I mean, I wouldn't even, we are a bedroom community, but by putting it in there, we're limiting our potential to be something better. It is a bedroom community, and also the facts are the facts. Costs are going up and everything else. So
I get
it's a
that,
true statement.
but it is true that we are a bedroom community, and that's what people like about our town. So
It's mentioned other places. I don't think it needs to be in the executive summary. But if you want to limit our potential for the future,
I don't think we're limiting. We're saying we want to stay that way. That's what everybody has said. We want to stay who we are.
Yeah, keep going, Steve. But I think at the end of this discussion, I don't consider the executive summary as something, I agree with what was said by Ralph, and I think this is something that we could work on between now and the 30th.
Okay.
um,
So you
on
say
the side.
you'd be
But I
willing,
would like to hear more,
okay,
so as long as we're not here till.
yeah, so let me go, and that's
Yeah, go
fine.
ahead.
That's fine. And just so you know, I went and looked at the 2013 executive summary because sometimes those words were pretty good. So another comment, go to the next to the last line under regional setting. You say development and as a contributor to the four-county region, in particular, the town will always fully coordinate with the counties. But do you really want to say that? Now, in the 2013 version, we said the town will always fully, I think we said we will strive to, the town will always strive to fully coordinate. So it's just, it's a word change that says you're not totally locking into it. I kind of like the other words better. If you go to the top of the second page, it says critical public facilities will be the single most important gauge of all growth decision-making. I know that's really, 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 really important to us, but is it truly the single most? I mean, the mix of homes and other factors are also, I mean, you can say it's a principal gauge. If you want to leave it single, that's fine. If that's your commitment, that's fine. But okay, this is the area of my biggest heartburn. The next paragraph. The first section of this, you say more about missing middle housing and what it's for and why than we really say in the meat of the document. I mean, you're saying here the plan acknowledges a demand for more rental inventory. I don't remember us acknowledging a demand for more rental inventory. Did we say that? And then here is another, this one's really a red flag for me. The 1, 2, 3, fourth line down, starting with realistically. Realistically, these housing demands are not likely to be met within the current town borders. How do we don't know that. We have two mixed-use developments, Green Tree and Mount Airy Crossing. Mount Airy Crossing is in a holding pattern, but maybe that is going to be built out. And that's MXD. It provides for different housing, dwelling types, diversity of housing, et cetera. In 5 to 6 years, if we're doing an analysis of affordability housing needs every year, we may decide we don't need any more of this. So I don't think it hurts by taking that sentence out. Just take that sentence out and then start right in with the annexations. That's a thought. Similarly, when you talk about the annexations, you're leading off with meeting these housing demands where I thought the whole purpose of annexations, if I look at the 2013 plan and Commissioner Butts, the 2013 plan was all about buffering, providing buffering, annexation zones that would buffer and mitigate impacts from surrounding growth. And that's mentioned, but you seem to lean more on providing affordable housing and less on all the other things. Transportation network, this is all really good, but this is really focusing on the need for safer pedestrian crossings and sidewalks. But what we're missing is the traffic vehicular safety component. And that was in the 2013 plan. It's in our plan. So I had a suggested sentence that we could put in there because we're also trying to improve the safety of Route 27 so that we don't have the accidents that we do. We have two failing intersections like at Twin Arts Road. So this is good, but we're missing the other piece of safety. So we could add that in.
Hey, quick question.
Yep.
I mean, this is definitely good stuff. Is this something that we can, you and the mayor?
Well, that's,
and myself
I
can
agree.
Kind
but-
of work offline?
Yes, but he asked me to go through them, so that's why I was doing
I
it.
mean, we all do have
Yes,
this.
Yeah.
So just with respect to our volunteers and
yes,
stuff like that, maybe we can,
that's perfectly
if the
fine.
council has a consensus that between myself, the mayor, who is, who are going to provide the two signatures on the end of this document.
Yes,
If we can agree to it, I mean, you guys will get a copy of it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion
good.
that if you guys meet
Yeah.
offline, including, I think Ralph was part of this discussion, you, the mayor, Ralph, and Steve, and I would like to offer up, and you guys answer too, whatever you come up with, if you need a consensus of the council, whatever you determine is good with the mayor's suggestion, you got my vote.
Well, couldn't we even do that? I mean, we could even put it in for the council meeting as just a quick new business consensus on the executive draft.
Or summary,
Which would then go into the public hearing on the 13th. So I can add that to the agenda, that we can work on this offline.
Yeah.
Come up with a final draft,
okay with that?
obviously without creating a quorum amongst ourselves, but individually work with it online. Under new business for the January council meeting, I can add in that we will take a consensus on this executive summary, which will then finalize it.
and I'm confident I can work with the mayor. We've worked on many things, and we can arrive at what everybody's comfortable with.
Just make sure I'm comfortable with it too.
And
if
you
I'm-
are too.
If I'm signing my name to it.
I wasn't,
That's what I'm saying. If it was
don't be
you,
speaking
the
for us,
mayor,
Steve.
Ralph, and Steve, you've only got two council members, you don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
I mean, we can, I want to think through the logistics of it, because it may be as easy as attaching it to the document that is
yeah.
created. I'm not sure we have to go over it at the council meeting. I'm trying to think if there's a manner to, it'll come out to everybody on the 30th is the target that we're looking for, right?
If that's agreeable, I mean, as
Yeah.
a timeline and as a hard suspense for the next version, I would
Yeah.
suggest the 30th.
And I suspect everybody's going to be okay with that. So you're going to have it to look at for 2 weeks. And if anybody has heartburn with it, they can speak up
So then
within
what,
those 2 weeks.
I think what we can say is when you get it, if you have an issue with it, reach out. If you don't have an issue with it, I will take that as a council consensus and it'll be going in on the 30th.
I'm good with that.
Council President, I have one thing to add.
Of course.
That's kind of giving me I'm not, under the town vision where it says the attributes of being unquestionably safe, that is really just a trigger that's just setting us up. I don't like the word safe. I don't like unquestionably safe. If we end it with attributes to being with limited growth, taking out being questionable safe, where that just the unquestionably safe, that itself is questionable because there's no safety, like,
So you're suggesting removing unquestionably safe,
please,
and it would just attributes of being
yes.
where,
Where limited growth does not create.
okay.
Because being safe, that's setting us up for saying, well, your town vision says you're safe,
And unquestionably safe.
and unquestionably safe.
Yeah, how do you measure unquestionably safe?
Same way you measure affordable housing. All right, well, with that being said, I want to finish off this meeting by, one, thanking John Breeding. The amount of work that went into this over the years is incredible. And also to our planning commission volunteers. I think this was probably, I wasn't involved in a lot of the master, or any other master plan, but the fact that we went to every single commission and got a totality of probably the most citizen input, maybe in history, in a document, is an attribute to your efforts. And I cannot thank you enough. I mean, the amount of work has been incredible. And I think that you guys are absolutely top notch, and we couldn't have done it without you. Actually, we didn't do it. you did it.
Yes,
And,
yes, thank you. I think it's started,
And just edit, you know, I hope you don't take it personal with the edits that we came with, but the starting point and the ending point, to me, are still fantastic, and thank you guys so much.
Council President, I think it's been a 4-year journey for this, so somewhere about there.
I know, and even Mr. Butts was a chairman on this process for the first couple years as well, so thank you, guys.
One quick comment, and the mayor will agree on this, I think. It's one thing to write and develop the plan and do that very, very carefully. It's far more important to implement it and hold yourself responsible for that whole process. And we learned some things about the implementation and continuing to have a full team of commissions that was working on that.
Yeah.
And so I look for us to build on that. That becomes really the home run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much. If there's no further input, this final workshop for the 2023 Comprehensive Master Plan is now done.
And the master planning spirits did the 3 workshops all in one night. It's just like the Scrooge Christmas Carol.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we are dismissed. Thank you guys very much. This meeting's adjourned.